I have to find my niche markets to excel. We're trying to mimic what the buffalo did, at least 2 times a day. We're in the quality business, not quantity business. Pay attention to your grass, the way you are your cows. Quit fighting Mother Nature and you start working with it. Maybe we're not crazy. Take the leap. We're only here once. So with the chicken eggs, for us, everything's about diversification and being different.
Okay.
Every road you go down in Darke County, there's somebody selling chicken eggs. There's nobody selling duck eggs. There's people that are allergic to chicken eggs. And so the duck eggs, you know, they lay more eggs. They make your chores easier because they only lay in the morning.
Oh.
So once you get your eggs, that's it for the day.
So you have to worry about them really laying on the ground or less likely anyway?
Yeah, because we pin them up at night.
Okay.
You come out in the morning, the eggs are there. And
so how many ducks do you have?
There's like 30 to 40.
Okay.
They're molting right now. When they compared to a chicken, their molt is, it looks like a duck massacre happened in the barn. They just
Really?
blow all their feathers out.
Oh my goodness.
It's ridiculous. So they don't lay as many as when they're molting, but we put apple cider vinegar in their water and it speeds that process up.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. How did you find that? Is that like a homestead thing or?
Yeah.
Okay.
So being not born into farming, I have that different outlook and I view it differently than a lot of the guys who've done it the way their dad did it, their grandpa did it. So we do a lot of research and reading and experimenting, and as a whole, apple cider vinegar for all your animals it's an amazing tool.
Okay. What for?
So for the ducks, it speeds up molting. It helps them with digestion, helps with the pH. But that goes for all animals, helps with the digestion. You just gotta make sure you don't overdo them because it can burn their esophaguses. But
gotcha.
Pigs, studies show that pigs will finish faster with apple cider vinegar in their water. And
that's interesting.
It also helps with worming.
I heard that.
Our cattle get it because it helps with the pH in their rumens. It makes them more apt to want to eat things that they don't normally want to eat because they can handle it.
Okay.
And increases butter fat in their milk, which makes for better calves. And
okay.
Yeah.
Really cool. You don't come from a farming background. And actually, when we were talking on the phone, I just thought it was really cool how you found farming. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you found farming, since that isn't something that you were raised up thinking you could do?
So I grew up on an acre with a single mom, and she had laying chickens. She loved, so that's pretty easy to do on an acre if you want to have your own chickens.
Right.
And I've always been obsessed with farming and agriculture and tractors. And then as I grew up and got older, you know, a lot of people tell me you can't do it, you're not born into it, you can't afford it, you're not going to make money. And it's not true. It comes back to your drive and what you're willing to put forth the effort, you know.
Okay. In things like learning or just being open-minded.
And now, today, in our generation, it is so much easier because we have the internet, we have the social media platforms, we have people like you that want to come out and talk and spread and help each other, and not so much, it's not so much a competition anymore. Not in our community, you know.
I would agree with that, absolutely.
You know, the big conventional farmers, they're not going to give you tips because they don't want to see you excel, your competition. The smaller regenerative organic farmers, we have meetings and conventions and all these get-togethers so that we can help each other to do better and grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I used to be a firefighter EMT for 2 big cities, and I just had this burning desire to farm. And on my days off, I would go help a guy I found on Craigslist.
Okay.
And he advertised that he had a farm and he needed help. So I'd go there, and for him, he said, he asked his wife, he's like, why would Blake want to work for me? This doesn't make sense. It was like $6 an hour cash. And she was like, well, Rich, it's not about money for him. It's about knowledge. So he raised beef on corn, and he did hogs here and there. And farm conventionally, and I got a lot of experience and learning, and then as time went on, I really got the bug for it, and I then quit my job at the firehouse. We bought this place, and I started working on organic dairy farming for sales. It was a documentary called Food Inc.
Oh yeah, okay.
I watched Food Inc. And at that time when I was working on that farm, you know, I could have went anywhere with my choices. I could have put up feedlots, and if that's what you want to do, that's fine. It's just not for me.
Okay.
And I saw Food Inc. and I was like, just hearing like Joel Salatin say, as a society, we've done a really good job of hitting the bullseye on the wrong target. And that stuff just resonated. And then he talked about like, well, why are we taking the corn to the cows when we can take the cows? They have legs. And I'm like, oh, it's so simple. It's so easy concepts, and we're just going the wrong way.
Yeah, just overcomplicating it.
Yeah, it's easy. And then for my birthday, my wife took me to Joel Salatin's farm. Wow. And we you were
like a little kid in a candy store.
I was a fangirl. It was like going to see NSYNC as a 13-year-old girl from our generation. We got there, and there's nothing that says that he's going to be there, that says he might not. He's busy, he's everywhere.
Right.
And he walks out of the house, and I was just like, oh. And my wife's like, don't do anything dumb, just be normal. I'm like, no, like.
But I'm not normal, I can't.
I can't do this, I can't handle this. So he came out and we did the tour, and then after the tour, you know, there's a lot of people there don't even know who he is. They're just in town.
Yeah.
And wanted something to do, and he says, I'll be sitting on the porch on the swing if anybody wants to talk. And that's where I beelined it, and we all sat down on the porch. There's like 4 of us, and some people brought pens and papers, and we sat for an hour or 2 and talked and solved all the world's problems.
Yeah, what a way to get started.
Yeah. Yeah, so then it started as the pasture poultry for us. And
okay.
We progressed into other things, into the beef and then the pork. And
very cool. There are a lot of things that just kind of like aligned for you to tell you this you need something different.
Yeah.
And if you don't want this on camera, we can take it off. But I think that it's important, if it's okay, to talk about. You said that when you were a firefighter, the heroin epidemic was really mentally taxing. It
was. And, you know, when you started doing it, it was pretty rare. We didn't go on a lot of overdoses. We didn't, you know, where I'm at here, you know, we're in Ohio. You don't think of Ohio and heroin.
Right.
You don't think of Ohio and drugs. You think corn and the Buckeyes. And turned out we were the epicenter for it, because we have 70 and 75, the 2 major state routes of the nation, collide in Dayton, Ohio. Yeah. And the 2 departments I worked for, our jurisdictions bordered them. And it was just a highway for it. And, you know, some people couldn't wait to get home to do it. And there's people that came from Athens, Ohio to buy it here because it was cheaper. And they wouldn't make it home before they overdosed going down the road. And it started to wear on me and wear on me and wear on me and changing me as a person. And I figured I don't like who I am as a husband and a father and a firefighter, you know, a person in the community. So then I kind of started finding this outlet. And, you know, Blake, people come to me and they say, Blake, your beef, it's amazing. Like, I can't believe it. It tastes so good. It's not lean. It's not dry. We can only eat half of a pound. We usually eat a pound every night. And they don't understand the nutritional overload. And I'm just like, I'm completing myself. I'm doing what Blake was put on this earth to do. So
Blake started wanting to be able to save people. Mm-hmm. And you were like, I'll be a firefighter and a paramedic, and that's what I'll do. And then you're like, it's just not hitting my brain. I'm going to save people in a different way. Yeah. I'm going to feed them. Yeah, I'm going to educate them too. That's what I really love, is just the people that come out. And, you know, a lot of our customers live in town and they can't do this, or maybe they just don't want to do it like I do. Yeah. But they can come out here and see our cows, pet a cow, pet a pig. It's a heartwarming kind of thing for us. Yeah. You feel whole now. Yeah. Yeah. Good. We're getting there. We're getting there. Through some changes. We're going to be making some changes. I think that that's really
going to like complete that for me. I was hoping they'd be out on the grass for you.
So you said that you were hoping they'd be on the grass, and I think it goes to show that getting into winter in Indiana, sometimes things just get a little sloppy.
Yeah.
Things aren't always perfect. They aren't always green and beautiful and sun shining, although I thought it was going to rain while we were here, and the sun is out right now, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
But I think it might be worth saying that sometimes things aren't a picture, an Instagram feed.
Right, and a lot of people don't understand is those real pretty pictures that like I have on Instagram and Facebook and other people do of that pretty grass. There's a sacrifice lot that happens to ensure we preserve that.
Keep it pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. So these are, what's the breed again?
Aberdeen Angus.
Aberdeen,
so,
that's right.
As your Angus enthusiasts would know them as low lines, and that was the original name, was a low line, and then they changed it. The association did to Aberdeen, which is where they came from.
Okay.
And a lot of people who come here, especially older people, this is like a blast from the past for them.
Because this is an old generation.
Yeah, so all my cows can be DNA tested back to the original Angus herd that came here before they were bred up to this massive.
What do you mean here?
To the United States.
Okay.
So back to when they were in Australia and England, and so the older generations, they remember their grandparents having Angus, and they remember them being this low line.
Yeah.
And
so they're shorter.
They're shorter, and like that cow with the yellow ear tag, she weighs probably 1,300, 1,400 pounds.
And she's pregnant.
She is absolutely pregnant.
Yeah, I saw her walking. I was like, ooh, that's a mama belly right there.
So they're all bred. They've never seen grain a day in their life.
Okay.
For my likes and the way my cattle look, I think she's a tad overweight.
Okay.
I'd like to probably see her a little thinned down.
That
more
might
like
be
the one in front of her.
She looks like she's got that TH head though, so she just might be a little stockier anyway, huh?
But they are super calm, super laid back, and the big thing for us being a smaller size is I can fit more pounds on an acre with this cow than I can with a full-size Angus.
Okay.
You know, where I can support these cows here, I can only support 50% of that with the full-size ones.
Uh-huh.
And they're easier to handle. They're easier to be around.
Not as crazy as the straight Angus? Or are they still a little crazy?
They still have their crazy tendencies. You can see it in their eyes sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's not as intimidating when a 1,000-pound, 36-inch, 40-inch tall animal's coming at you versus a 2,000-pound one that he's licking the inside of the roof of your trailer.
That's very true. Now in the summertime, so again, this is your winter setup.
Yes.
But in the summertime, you have them out on pasture.
Yep.
And do you rotate them daily or?
Multiple times a day.
Multiple times, okay.
At least 2 times a day.
Why?
We're trying to mimic what the buffalo did.
Okay.
So when the buffalo came across the plains, they were in herds of hundreds of thousands, and the thought process of a buffalo is I have to eat that before this one eats it, whether they want to eat it or not. So by putting them in a small area, they compete against each other to eat. They're not prejudiced to what plant it is. You know, that alfalfa plant looks pretty good, that red clover looks pretty good, but that thistle, if I don't eat it, that other cow's gonna eat it, so I might as well just eat it so I can get my belly full. So
that's an interesting perspective on that.
So as the buffalo moved across the plains, they were being pushed by each other, and you had this mass deposit of manure and urine, and that's what helped fuel. And then, you know, you're trying to, as they're doing that, they're also trampling it into the ground.
Mm-hmm. So you're adding organic matter, adding fertilizer, spreading seeds even.
Absolutely.
And have you noticed a change in your bird population around here? Because we did when we had just 5 acres, and we noticed way more birds at the end of our 6 years than we did when we started.
Our wildlife, just in general,
really
it's crazy. You know,
bunny rabbits and
the rabbits, the deer. We don't ever end up with turkeys on our property, but we'll see them in the fields next to us.
Okay.
It doesn't mean they don't come over here, but yeah.
Very
So we
cool.
move them 2 times a day. I move them before work. I move them when I get home from work. On the weekends, I'll probably move them more than that. If I'm here all day, they'll probably get moved every couple hours.
Very cool. So you just do smaller
Smaller
paddocks.
moves. Yep.
Okay.
Tighter space.
Yep. Very cool.
And then when we feed hay in the winter, we follow the same processes, and they only get as much hay as they can eat in 2 hours.
Okay.
2 hours in the morning, 2 hours at night. And then they do the same thing. If you know you're only going to eat 12 hours apart, you're going to gorge yourself.
Yeah.
And you're going to get better rates of gain, and they're not going to be as picky as to what's in the hay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the big thing that we've done now is working a full-time job, being a husband, being a father. I have to figure out my priorities and where my time lies. And I got to figure out what's best for them, what's best for the soil, and best for the grass. And we go back to the common sense things like Joel Salatin talked about. We don't feed our hay in our barn. We feed our hay in our pastures.
Okay.
And
so this is your winter pasture out here.
Out here. We have 2 over here and we have 1 back there.
Okay.
And I focus my hay feeding on where my problem areas were for the summer. Or if I, say, didn't put the wire up right and the cows got out and they went back to something and they overgrazed it, whatever you do this year is what you're going to see next year. So whatever good things you did, you're going to get rewarded. And whatever bad things you did, you're going to pay the consequences. Mm-hmm. But we can combat those things with using our cows as tools. And we'll stage our hay bales, our round bales out here. And we'll put the cows on them, and they'll only be able to get one. Once they finish that bale, we'll move on to the next one. And then we'll have that mass deposit of what people call waste. Mm-hmm. So they're not going to eat all the hay.
Right.
But that's okay.
Yeah, because it acts as ground cover, adds
Absolutely.
Organic matter. Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
So wherever our problem areas were, so with us having a hillside, naturally the top of that hill, we're going to have a little less nutrients than what we will at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. So your winter feeding, you're still moving them every day through the winter. Is that right? So you have them on pasture basically through the winter even. You're just feeding them hay on the pasture.
Your grass is dormant at that point. It's still going to set it back a little bit, but not as much as if it was an active growing root.
Yeah.
So, and then we try to wait till the ground's frozen too, because then they're not.
So you're locking them up until you're at the freeze, at the hard freeze, and then you put them back out there. It's not going to turn it into a slop mess, because we're going to take all these cows, put them in a small area with a round bale, and they're going to eat it like they would when they're on grass. Yeah.
And there really won't be much left over. You'd be surprised how much there won't be. And then come springtime, you'll see those circles out there, and it'll look like aliens came and dropped fertilizer for you all winter.
Wow.
And you'll have these circles of just beautiful, lush green grass, and then you'll see where it didn't leach quite as far out from there, and you're like, man.
Isn't it so interesting how pastures respond?
The biggest thing that I've ever been told, and I have to remind myself daily, a lot of people look at their cows and they look at their condition and they look at their bodies and they think, man, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this. Well, if you pay attention to your grass the way you are your cows will follow. Stop looking at your cow and saying, I think she needs this. Start looking at your grass and saying, what does my grass need? What does my soil need? And when you start taking care of that, they naturally will follow.
That's such an interesting point, and one that is easily forgotten.
Absolutely.
Very easily forgotten.
And taken for granted. And
you went to an ag school and got a degree in all of these fun things, but you didn't.
No.
So how did you learn all of this? Has this been trial by error? Is this your own research? Do you have a mentor? How do you have all of this knowledge from a guy who didn't grow up doing this?
So like I talked about Rich before.
Which is the farmer you worked for?
Rich was the farmer I worked for. Rich is one of those old farmers that can look at a pile of scrap metal in a woods and be like, well, that was a John Deere 25/7 plow. And they made 20 of those that year, and you're like, how did you do that? He is such a wealth of knowledge, and I learned so much from being with Rich and just how to handle livestock. And a lot of people see cows and they want them to move and they start screaming and yelling, and your presence is enough. And then I met Rich's son-in-law, who started farming organic, and then he realized that he needed cattle in order to be successful in farming organic, because we're trying to, again, mimic the buffalo. We can't buy the fertilizer. So we started going to classes. There was some classes that Seven Sons put on with their producers, and we were able to go to those. And
Okay.
Seven Sons is a big outfit out of Indiana.
Yeah.
And they've been very successful in the grass-fed game.
Yeah. So you just really kind of put your nose in the, it's not books really anymore, but put your nose into that field, into this field.
Just
and
immerse
soaked
yourself
up.
in it.
Yeah.
And then you're going to come out here and try and apply it. And what's working for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And what worked for you is not going to work for me. But we do our best. And I think that's why the community of small farmers like this, the regenerative ag, is so apt to help each other. You know, we went to they had like a class a year ago. And it was so neat to just be that fly on the wall. And you sat there. And this guy said, well, I planted rye and I did this, this, and this. And then I won't ever do this again because it ruined my whole year. And all these guys write this down like, okay, don't terminate it at this time. And he's just trying to help his community.
Right. Just learning.
Never stop learning and pay attention. You know, when I've had a long day at work, my favorite things to do was to just come out here and I just sat on the ground, sat with the cows. And I didn't realize what I was doing. Like, yeah, I was decompressing. I was calming down. I was relaxing. But then I'm watching the cows and I'm watching what they eat, how they interact, what plant they avoided, why they ate that plant. They never touched a thistle, but when it's in flower, they eat the tops of the flowers off. That's the only way you're going to kill a thistle. You just start to become one, you know.
Yeah.
Quit
really
fighting Mother Nature and you start working with it.
Yeah, and just paying attention. Just being open-minded. Very cool.
Yeah. We're in the quality business, not quantity business.
I like that. That is a really good way to put it.
And like, for us, like I talked about red clover, the chickens devour red clover. They love the red clover. So when it's out here in your pastures, and when I said frost seed, you know, for people that might not know what that is, come March-ish, the ground, as it freezes and thaws, it moves up and down, up and down. Just take a spreader and spread like 9 pounds to the acre is what we're shooting for. And just broadcast it on top of that ground. If there's snow there, if there's not. And it'll work itself into the ground and it'll grow on its own.
So less mechanics. You don't need something.
You don't need some special equipment.
Right.
You can go out there with a hand spreader. You can sling it like chicken feed.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Very cool.
All our red clover, you know.
I mean, we've had a few frosts now.
Yeah.
And your pastures look great.
They look good. They look decent.
Okay. You have higher standards?
Absolutely.
Okay, what would you like to see out here then?
Not as much bare spots.
Okay. And I wouldn't even call this bare. It's just low cover.
Yeah.
Versus like over here.
If we, like we talked about with the bale feeding, my hillside's my problem.
Sorry, I'm going back and
right
forth.
Here is where we fed a round bale.
Okay.
Look at the grass.
Do you just drop a round bale or do you spread it out?
Drop it in one place.
Okay.
Because
do
we
you put
want
a
that.
feeder around it?
Nope.
Okay.
But I have enough cows to not justify the feeder.
Right.
That comes back to like stocking rates and stuff. If you have small squares, you can do the same thing with small squares. You don't have to do it with round bales.
Right.
It's just what works for us.
Okay.
But you can see, like last winter, this is where the round bales were fed, was on this hillside.
It looks great.
And you can see the difference in growth compared to what's around it.
Yeah. I mean, it's looking identical to downhill. And usually, like you said, this would be way more bare being on top.
Absolutely.
Than down low. So you are using other people's, or you're leasing land to grow your hay. Do you ever put your animals out there where you're putting hay?
Not at this time. It's definitely something I want because the animal impact on the land is huge. And that's where a lot of people are lacking, is lack of animal impact. You need the hooves crimping grass. You need the manure. You need the urine. especially if you want to do it this way.
Yeah.
And not buy fertilizers.
Right.
Because hay fields in particular are so deficient in everything because they've been take. You know, can we squeeze a fourth cutting in this year? It's another take.
Yeah.
Well, what are you giving back?
Right.
So that's the big thing here is after the cows come through here the first time in the spring is we spread our manure because we want to get that shot back onto the soil.
Right.
And then it rests and then they come back through again.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said that you're thinking about going through some changes. What are those changes and why are you making them? What has made the decision to get into those changes?
So I'm probably the biggest advocate for raw milk you'll ever meet in your life. My buddy Rich I told you about, when you work on his farm, his rule is you eat dinner with us. They're very older fashioned type couple.
Okay.
And I'd go work all evening, and then when it was dinner time, I'd come in and eat supper with them. And I've a horrible asthmatic. I've had asthma my whole life.
Okay.
I've had bad allergies. I've had steroids. I lived for Benadryl, Zyrtec, all these things just constantly in my system every day. So as I went on this journey through life of learning of the holistic way of living, I started watching documentaries and I saw stuff about raw milk. I didn't even know there was a thing.
You didn't know milk could be raw.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah. That's what it is, you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know it. There's a transition before it gets to the grocery.
Right.
And I read where people can have asthma benefits, allergy benefits from raw milk. And I started watching documentaries about it. And I'm like, where can I get my hands on this? I gotta try it. I'll do anything to not be a slave to my inhaler.
Yeah.
And so I started working at Rich's, and they said, well, what do you want to drink? We've got this, and this. And they said, we've got milk. I said, well, I'll just have a glass of milk. And she goes, well, it's raw milk. Is that okay? And I'm like, wait a minute. You have raw milk? And she's like, yeah, is that fine? And started explaining to me, like, I know all about it. Like, yes, please.
Yeah.
And then that was the first time I was like, so this is it. This is the real stuff. Well, I worked there through the summer. Time went on. I noticed I wasn't taking Benadryl. I noticed I wasn't doing my inhaler. And then I was like, that's got to be it.
Yeah.
So then when I went to work on a raw milk dairy, and, well, an organic dairy, and they sold raw milk, you start meeting more people that feel the same as you did. So that's where we're coming back full circle into my journey as a farmer and providing to the community. I think that's the next step for us.
To have cows, milk cows.
Yeah, start milking cows and selling, in particular for us, A2 raw milk, so we can corner a market that nobody else is providing for.
Absolutely. So when do you think you'll buy your first cows? Or dairy cows, I should say.
So we're going to sell a couple of the cows that we don't like to get our numbers down.
Yep.
Hang on to a couple of the other ones that are really good.
Okay.
Just so that we can make sure if we don't like it, we're not sold out and restarting back into beef. But if we do like it and decide, hey, this is working for us, we'll sell the rest of the cows. What I really want, my ultimate goal, is to have my wife home full time.
Okay.
That's the end goal. I can work, but she's more valuable as a mother to be here every day and teaching our kids, you know, how to milk cows, how to do those things, and she can still be at home. She can provide that way.
Now, I hate that she's not here today because she had to go to her off-farm job today. She shares this love and passion like you do for farming.
She went to the Art Institute of Cincinnati.
Okay.
She's like me. Wasn't born into it. We're from the same town though. And when she dated me and married me, she didn't know it was going to turn into this.
Right.
It was just like, oh, he likes tractors. That's cute. And then it turned into where we are now.
Yeah.
And she didn't get it until we went to Joel Salatin's farm. And we met other couples, and we met people that were there to meet him because he had changed their lives.
Yeah.
And she talked to one girl in particular from New York City. She was telling us about how she was caught up in clothing and work and living the New York City lifestyle that we see from a distance here.
Yeah.
And she said, I was sick. I'm 20 years old. I can't go up the stairs without getting out of breath. I don't feel good. I have acid reflux. I have all these problems. And she reverted back to, it was her diet. So she started eating more natural. She started buying more locally type raised foods. And all these problems went away. And she's explaining this to my wife. And she goes, so what brings you here? And my wife goes, well, we do this. And she just was floored. And she couldn't believe that my wife was a part of this. She couldn't believe that we did it. And it kind of really kicked things into her, like, maybe we're not crazy.
Yeah. But when you're surrounded by corn and soybean, you kind of feel a little crazy, and your neighbors kind of look at you funny.
They do, because...
And you got pigs on grass. Like, what are you doing with your pigs out here on grass?
And my neighbors are like, Blake, you look at all the grass you're leaving out there. And I'm like, I know. Isn't it pretty? And they're like, no, like, you could have 20 more cows. And I'm like, yeah. And then I wouldn't have the grass to feed them.
Yeah.
And
I have the grass now, but if I got 20 more cows,
absolutely.
I won't have the grass then.
Yeah. And
wow.
You know, we don't spray anything, and we just, if you can tell by the colors around us, we don't fit in.
Being here is so cool, and I know that you were one of the first farms we contacted for this series, and timing just didn't work out, but I'm so glad that we are here now. Your passion it's easily seen. You can hear it in your voice, especially not coming from a farming background. I just love that. If there is anybody out there who maybe has a similar story to you, maybe they're in a job that's mentally draining them, maybe they have people in their family that tell them that they can't farm, it's not possible. Here you are doing all of this and had all those things in the past. What would you tell them?
It's not unrealistic. You have to figure out what's going to make you happy and what you want to do. As a teenager, I helped a neighbor bale hay, and seeing the stuff around me, I was like, I don't want to bale hay. I want to be a corn farmer like everybody else. And then I started seeing other things, and I was like, the grass is beautiful. Like, you start learning about the plants and what they do. You know, I'm highly allergic to horses, and if I know I'm going to be around a horse, I go find some plantain in somebody's yard and I eat the leaf, and now I don't have the problem with the horse.
Wow.
And I'm like, looking at it out here, and I see all the plantain, and I see my cows eating it, and I have a family member who has a cow that they get allergies sometimes. And I'm wondering, like, how much plantain's out in your pasture, or your cow's eating your plantain, because it's an antihistamine. So you just start to learn your purpose. And I'm probably not the best person to ask, because a lot of people calculate and they wait and they want to write this down and they want to think about it and they're scared to pull the trigger. And I'm like, let's go now. And
maybe that's how some people should be.
Yeah, take the leap.
Yeah.
Don't be scared. You took a massive leap.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't know where you're going yet. You're still falling or flying or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
But you and your family's taken a massive leap, and it's probably been fun. And it's been exciting. We're only here once. I learned that as a firefighter, EMT.
Yeah.
We're only here once. So you better do what you can do now, or you're not going to.
Yeah. An amazing message. Well, thank you so much, Blake, for having me and my family here. We really have loved it. If anybody is in the Greenville area and they either want a farm tour, reach out to you and say hi, or maybe want to try some of your products, maybe when you have some milk, how can they do that? How can they reach you?
Well, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram,
yep,
we're on TikTok.
Yep. And we'll put links of those in the description below.
Or if they're in Greenville, look for the farm with the smiley faces on the silos. I don't know if you noticed that.
I did not.
But this farm
there we go.
is renowned through Darke County as the farm with the smiley faces on the silos that you can see driving down 127.
So if you see the silos with the smiley faces on them,
They're the only ones.
it's Blake.
It's me.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Blake. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.